Hi everybody. So I've been encouraged by quite a few people to talk more openly and be vulnerable about what it was like for me growing up and exactly it was that, or my path or my journey was towards getting my diagnosis of being bipolar, and then what happened to me, what changed my life, and also what the future looks like for me. So with that in mind, I've decided that I want to make a series of a few videos that will document that. So I want to start with the beginning of what happened in my life. Every doctor, every psychiatrist, even holistic doctors, anybody has always said to me that there must have been some form of childhood trauma that kicked off like whatever it is that goes wrong in your head, say wrong tentatively, but whatever it is that sparks that imbalance. And I also have gut problems as well, which a lot of, like, especially holistic doctors, they place the blame of that on childhood trauma. But to be perfectly honest, I can't remember anything. I can't remember anything like that. That doesn't mean that it's happened, and my parents have never told me, so I've got no reason to suspect that they know of anything which would mean anything. I had a really happy childhood. I think I grew up spoiled. I think my generation was that the millennial generation where we grew up quite entitled. I see it in a lot of people my age or a bit younger. I don't think that I had a lot of toys. I mean, I went to work and started work at like 13, 14 years old and have never not had a job. It was a small period where I was getting help that I needed, but straight back into work, and even then, periods of work off as sick rather than unemployed. I wasn't given like a lot of pocket money. Did chores. I respected my parents. I was cheeky. I remember getting in a lot of trouble. I think that I was quite a handful as a child, but I don't think that you could look back and be like, yeah, I was destined for this, or to have that later diagnosis. So a lot of people have asked me that, have said, well, what went wrong in your childhood? And the answer is nothing. Both parents, they were together and are still very good friends. They aren't divorced, and they still live in the same house. So I can't, there's nothing there, even though I think that nowadays that makes children really strong when they come from split households where their parents are able to maintain an amicable relationship. So I moved a lot. I remember, I think, moving from the south coast of England to Scotland and then back down, and growing up until about the age of 10 in Stenning before moving to sort of the Hastings area. I remember that being hard, but I don't remember that being traumatic. I think that I was anxious, but at the same time looking forward to a new challenge, looking forward to starting a new life and new possibilities and stuff like that. I will be shocked if the majority of the people that are listening to what I'm about to say can't relate to it, and that is that they look back and they think that if British Cycling had been doing what they do with Go Ride and Club Mark around the country back when they were a youngster, they wouldn't have had a good shot at being pro, because I think that the majority of us missed our chance just because our local clubs, or there was no local club, or there was no setup, there was no youth coaching system, there was none of this stuff, which was exactly what happened to me. I mean, I always loved the bike. Every kid loves the bike. I don't know any child that doesn't. If their parents can get access to a cheap bike for them, then they're going to ride it because of the freedom. And that was what it was for me. So that I had that love, never obviously competed as a youngster, unlike some of the youngsters that I coach now. And that was it, really. It was a passion, but it never went anywhere. Now, my biggest problem growing up was always anxiety. Panic attacks were frequent in my life, and if you've ever suffered with anxiety, it's genuinely crippling. It can be. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm just a little bit anxious to meet somebody new. I'm talking about like, what excuse can you make to not do that? How can you, I mean, I can't even remember the coping tactics, but I remember if I was late to something, I wasn't often late, like to class growing up, I would be absolutely terrified of entering that room and having everybody watching me. I remember like interviews being really hard and all of this stuff that even now, I mean, I'm not on any medication now, so God knows what it is that's changed that, but I don't get this anymore. So I guess I get it like sometimes when you get like performance anxiety when you're racing, but nothing that would make me want to make an excuse of not to do it anymore. So I think that, and having said that, not that I've ever really got out of anything because of it, because I think I always was determined to push on through. But yeah, I mean, age 10 at my new school, I remember being a bit anxious and getting into meeting new people. But I think I settled in really well. I had some really good friends at that school, and then obviously moving into secondary school at age 11, and that's when, like, if I can really think about it, that's when I really get like that recollection of just like not being able to function, because I wasn't wanting to go to these places or speak to these people, and you just look for security and everything like that. I mean, where do you go when you're that lost in terms of inside your own mind? I mean, it was inevitable for me to want to move on, like, and progress and get rid of that. And I think that you just start hanging around with different people. And I remember like meeting like transitioning friends, I guess, at sort of age 13, 14, and I have a lot of friends who I actually like I still speak to nowadays, and it was that we were like the ones that were sort of experimenting a little bit with drink. And I remember one of the first times I tried cannabis, I think I smoked far too much, and I think I had like a little fit or a seizure. I don't know what you would describe it as, but I remember having convulsions and being put to like rest. This was obviously with older people, adults, and I think one friend, and I was put in the garden and just like left for a little bit. I'm not sure I would do that nowadays, but needless to say that was pretty much I never really enjoyed smoking weed after that, and I'm pretty sure you'd appreciate that with anxiety and then having that sort of attack, associating the two together, they could have been totally unlinked, but it was never going to be for me. But that didn't stop me from finding ways to make life easier and to dull those sort of thoughts about I guess like with anxiety, it does come down to self-esteem, doesn't it? If you're not confident and you doubt yourself a lot, you get worried that people are judging you, or you aren't worth being in their attention, or people are going to do bad things to you, and all of these things that just aren't true, but you get so wrapped up in the own like BS of it, is that you actually start to believe them. So there's only so much self-punishing that you can do, and before you look for ways to drown that out, and that was obviously alcohol for me. It started as alcohol, and I think as early as 14 I was starting to drink, and and like especially at weekends. And when I was 14, 15, I mean the law was still there for drinking, but it wasn't that strict. I remember getting off the school bus in our little village with a mate in our school uniform and going into our pub and having a few drinks in our uniform. And that's how serious people took it, and that's only, we're talking 15 years ago, 16 years. So it wasn't hard, and that was half the problem, is that even like, you could say I was an older looking like 14, 15 or 16 year old. Nowadays with the laws or maybe not the law, but like the guidelines on looking 25 in the UK, it makes it a heck of a lot harder for you to actually get hold of the alcohol, which I guess would have been different for me. Drinking was replacing that, and it was self-therapeutic, but from a place where you were ignorant, or I was ignorant, because I was like, oh, it's solving my problems. I feel excellent. I feel confident when I'm drinking, and I'm like I'm a happy person. I'm like the life and soul of the party, and like you have a load of friends, and it's all a good laugh, but it's not true, is it? Because at the end of the day, you've got to wake up and face your problems the next day, but you just feel worse in the morning. But at the time, you don't see it. That's the thing, you don't see that. So I guess the big problem really for me, on top of the alcohol, was when I first started using harder drugs like ecstasy and cocaine, and that became a hard addiction for me. Probably from the age of sort of 17 for many years, where I was using like day in, day out. I overdosed many times. I mean, several times. I know the feeling very well of like your blood pressure just dropping completely, and you just have no energy, no strength, and it's all you can do to not, or to make sure that you turn your head and vomit to the side rather than vomiting with your head back, or if you manage to get to a toilet, in the toilet bowl. I mean, God knows how I'm able to ride a bike how I do now. I mean, the only thing that I can say is that anybody that's like listening and thinks they've done their body a lot of damage, as long as your doctor says that you're fit and good to go, then I wouldn't worry about it, because I don't seem to have any. It's all debatable, of course, because if I hadn't have done that much drugs and alcohol when I was younger, where would I be on a bike now? Would I be even better? We just don't know. It's ifs and buts, and it isn't worth thinking about. So, of course, when you're using a lot of drugs and alcohol to self-medicate your mood, and you just get wrapped up in that need to continue that pull. If you don't have an addictive personality, or you've never been addicted to anything, then you can't know how hard it is, because it replaces you, and it is a disease. It's a disease. Then I think that some people are just susceptible to it. Some people just have that ingrained in them. I mean, I've been described as obsessive compulsive, but I don't think that I really am that. I think that I just get incredibly addicted to patterns of behaviour. Like, I like standards, and I like things to be the set, and that's what happens to me. And I remember a lot of issues with me and around drugs, and the lies that I used to tell, or like how manipulative I'd be in order to get that fix. And and it's not pleasant. I look back at that, and it's not a great time, obviously, in my life, but obviously I came through it, and I'm stronger for it. But I guess really for me, like everybody in my situation who has a story has a rock bottom, and for me, I mean, I have some scars on my body, burns There's a few burns and knife wounds, and that again, that's something that it's just the same as alcohol for me. It's just the same as alcohol and drugs, because for that brief period where you're hurting from something else rather than that emotional pain, and of course all of these things, they're not helping my mood, and I've barely even discussed on that. But I mean, if you watched the interview I did with my fiance Noelle, you'll see that I can be angry. I'm definitely a lot better than I used to be, and I work hard every day in order to control my temper and not shout. But when I was younger, it was uncontrollable. I was like, sometimes it was just impossible to be near me. It was just such a bad temper and mood and the anger, and I think that just it came to a head one day. And if I remember rightly, it was I think I damaged a lot, or I smashed my parents' kitchen, and then tried to take my life, and then woke up in hospital and basically that's when I started to realise. That's when the realisation kicked in with me, is it's not sustainable. That life isn't sustainable. And it wasn't long after that I got my diagnosis. That's not where the story ends, obviously. It's not even where the story starts to get better, to be honest. But I think we're going to cover what helped in the next chapter. So I hope that I've not alienated anybody by speaking my truth, and that people can appreciate that I needed to be vulnerable in chatting about this, and that there are people out there that will hopefully look at this and will relate. If anybody is watching this that is worried, or is hitting their rock bottom, or has hit it recently, I hope that if you find comfort in knowing that you're not the only person to have done this, and you won't be the last person. You can change that, and you can make that change, which will better your life. So I'd just like to say thank you again for watching this video, and thank you if you've already donated. And if you haven't and you'd like to, the links are in the description of this video. Anything that you can give will be greatly appreciated. Both Mind and NAMI do excellent work in their respective communities. And even if you can't donate, and even if you have, I'd really appreciate it if you'd share this video. Not just because the more people that watch this, the more corporates will sponsor me, but because it will change the people's perspective on what mental health actually is. And there might be somebody out there suffering just like I did who could do with seeing this. In a few weeks, I'll bring the next chapter of this series about how it got better and what that looked like.